it's a great success story.
Yeah, it's a challenging one, and
Your first job is the door. It's stepping foot. I don't think there's a magic portion. It's always a learning. A lot of people most companies want skilled individuals.
Hello, welcome to NHI Podcast, and today we are from the Oman Convention Centre during the Horeca show, and I'm delighted to be joined by my guest today, Maimunah Al Shebani from the Retail Academy. Maimunah, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you with us.
Same here.
And it's a bit noisy, a lot of activity going outside, but I'm sure that we can talk over it.
Yes.
So we were just talking there earlier about we're both in training. We both face similar challenges with recruitment, training. How do you find the right ones, or the people who you feel are right for training? What's the magic potion?
I don't think there's a magic portion. It's always a learning process for us, and with this new generation, you have a variety of different people that come and apply. You have previously for retail jobs, you'd have people who don't have any experience or haven't completed high school.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you have everyone from, a bachelor's degree, a higher diploma, a high school degree, and everything below.
Yeah.
And, they come in all shapes and forms.
Yeah.
And, but what we realized is that, at the end of the day, they're all seeking that perfect job.
Yeah.
A lot of them are inexperienced or, fresh graduates.
Sure.
And they come in, hoping to find that right position or that right job. And there's a lot of mentoring and a lot of coaching, even during the interviews, just because you kind of understand where they're coming from. And then you kind of want to gently let them know what the reality is, right? When you graduate and you don't have any experience, whatever opportunity falls in your lap, you take it.
Yeah, it's a challenging one, and we come. Well, I'm obviously a fair bit older than you, but we probably come from generations where a lot of us took that first job and we got started, and it wasn't easy, it was tough, but we got in there, and we started to get used to it, and it's getting used to the responsibility of work, and but also the thrill of earning money for the first time. That was the thing,
and that's what
right? You think, oh wow, I got my first salary, and that's what we're always saying to students. When you start getting paid to do a job, you might take on a different attitude with it. But it's true. I mean, people, thinking about what are they going to accept, and you are from the retail background, I am from the hospitality background, and in both areas, sometimes it can be a bit challenging with cultures as to are they jobs which people would aspire to and they want to do. From our side, and I'm sure it's probably similar to you, there's many, many young people over the years who have gone into these jobs that we're talking about and either stayed in them and done well, or they've used that as a bridge into employment, and they learned a lot of basic skills working with people and understanding expectations from their managers and employers, and then use that in the next job, which was maybe nearer their actual goal, which could be quite different. And both our trades, I think, are building blocks to general employment. Many young people around the world, not in Oman, have come through either like a retail background or hospitality to give them that first step.
Yes.
And some who love it and like it will stay. Others move on. But it's not always easy to sell that concept.
That's true. And I truly believe that your first job is the door. It's stepping foot into employment and stepping foot into the real world, right? But whether you continue that career or, you decide to go somewhere else, you've gained the right experience that will take you to the next level. And that exact concept is what's missing, and there's a lot of awareness that needs to be done to really get people to understand that you take the first job, even if it's not in your career or it's not in your field, but then you will realize where you want to go or what you're willing to accept or what you want to take yourself to. I've studied something and I'm in something completely different. I truly believe that a certificate or a qualification is proof that you're ready to work.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Regardless of what your job is. Yes, there are certain jobs where you need some very technical.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right too, and I think what I've always thought is that yes, we train someone in hospitality and whatever, and I'm sure it's the same in retail. And what it actually does is, as going back to my previous point, it kind of makes it they're more employable. So they've gone through the process.
yes,
And so, when we often track down previous students, maybe, or we find out, or by chance we find out where they are and what they're doing, it's often that they have moved, but they're working. And I have found that, we're criticized some, with this guy, he left the industry and he went here. Yeah, but he's working. That's fine. And it was maybe the industry experience that created that job start for him, which is fantastic. And, when you think of the quite limited investment that goes into our types of training, I think it's actually a pretty good deal for the country in general.
I completely think and truly believe that vocational training makes you more employable.
Yes.
A lot of people think vocational training is the backup plan.
Yeah.
If you don't get a degree, if you don't go to university, go vocational training.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the numbers and the statistics, people that have graduated or have vocational training are more employable. And it's because employers want people that can start and run.
Can do.
Right? With a university degree, yes, you have that, that knowledge and everything, but do you have the skills? And a lot of people most companies want skilled individuals.
Yes.
But what they forget is that skills are taught. They're not just assumed, right? So, all of that,
it's true, and it's employers will, they would really struggle if they're literally these kind of trainees were not around, because they would literally find they could not provide their services. And in our industries, they are still pretty heavy people industries. Yeah, we know that the robots are coming and whatever.
They will never take over. They will never take over, especially this industry.
I think in our industry it's going to be quite fun to watch them. So I think there's still issues there. But I think also too, our industry, I'm not sure the same with you. We have a lot of international brands connected, and they have a lot of brand standards.
Yes.
So they have a duty to try and ensure that these jobs are made attractive.
Yes.
Because they should not just expect people to come in and you should be grateful that we are employing you and all this. But the jobs should be more. And it is a challenging industry. And I think some of the brands have done quite well to try and get over some of the barriers of customer interactions. They're now dealing with a heavy social media feedback, where people can just write down what they think about the services they've had or whatever. And if I was a restaurateur now, I would be pretty scared, because you just don't know what people are going to write for any reasons.
Yeah.
And therefore they have to align their service skills and their people with that as well. But yeah, back to our core, we here are trying to get more local workers into jobs, into what it can be quite challenging. So I think you'd agree it's pretty non-stop. You're constantly looking for ways of encouraging, motivating, giving confidence to students, to make them feel that, it may not be perfect, but it's not for life. And even by the time you think, I'm only going to do this for a year, but you get to the end of the year and you suddenly find, actually, I'm quite comfortable. I kind of know the job and I quite like it. And, you might stay in it for longer. Yeah.
I think we're in a better era now than we were before, because jobs in hospitality and retail weren't on the top of anyone's list, right? But I think with the social media and all of this hype, there's certain positions, like I know a tour guide, for example, is a fun and hypey, kind of position. And from baristas as well, baristas have become a massive, attraction to especially the locals, because even the female population, they want to be baristas. They see it as a lifestyle. They see it as it's cool, and it's easier to attract people to these jobs. Yes, we have some jobs that are quite challenging, but sometimes there are people that are willing to work those jobs if they understand that there is career progression. You just need to do well, do well in what you do, and you can then grow into your career into. And at the same time, there's lots of jobs that you have to create that image for these people who are looking for jobs, because you say, look, this is a job that you can take. These are the skills that you will learn, and this will make you more employable. Right? But I think there's a lot of work, from a national level, from individual level, from an institute or an academy level, where we need to raise the awareness. We need to really get that these are the jobs that are available. This is where you can start. This is something that you can do, and you can move on from there. You don't really box them in, but you say, this is what's available.
Absolutely, and in our field, and again in your field too, that the range is pretty wide now, because you've got people working for a particular brand, and they have an opportunity to move.
Yes.
So they can go from here, they can stick within the brand. We actually have one example of a young student of ours, went to W Muscat, ended up W London.
Oh, wow.
Now works for Gordon Ramsay in London. So that was one good
That's a
brand
great success story.
Yeah, it was a great success story. We don't get many of them at that kind of path. And many others have done well. They've done task force in different countries for the brand. So they have moved around. And you tend to see those are the ones who have become stronger and very often done quite well and come up through the ranks. And there is a pattern. When you've had people with that level of input, they tend to be stronger, and they're more convinced that this is a trade for them or an industry for them, and that they will stay. And I can think of several who have done that. I know when Shangri-La was on the go, some went to China because they have a facility there. And I remember in the old days, Bustan used to send them to the Intercon in London. And there's a lot of that going crossover with the brand, and that's one advantage of being with a brand. You can travel.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things that we've also observed is that if it's an international brand, it's more attractive.
Yes.
Because they know that they will be exposed to more. They have more opportunity for growth. And a lot of people are actually becoming very aware of who the big brands are, who is owned by these brands, where is their head office, and they come in, and if they've done their research,
Sure.
So we do have people with bachelor's degree, happy to work in retail.
Yeah.
And some of them saying that if I find myself,
Sure.
I will continue.
And some of the retail brands that we have in town now, some of them are very nice, very glamorous.
And if you just go to Mall of Oman, it's great to work in that environment.
Yeah,
I'd love to work in a mall, right?
Yeah. It's excellent, and it's something that we never had, not on that size before in Oman. So, and I do think so. I think it's, but it's also too that we got to get it right with the youth to make sure that the employer is then comfortable by taking them on and employing, etc. And by doing that, they get the job, they get the experience, and then the whole thing starts moving on and doing it.
I realize that recruitment is like a marriage. Okay. You don't want just a yes. You want the right fit, right? Long term, right?
Yes.
So
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, I realize that if you make the process easier for both sides,
Yes.
the job seeker and the employer, you get better results, faster results.
Yes.
And I think that's what's missing. We need a better system in place. We need a lot of transparency. There's a lot of awareness and education content that needs to be created about especially your first job.
Yes.
I know on a national level, we've done great on how to prepare a right CV, right?
Yes.
Previously, it was a disaster. But, now everyone who submits their CV, it's a good CV, right? And we've passed that stage. I think we're in a stage now where how do you prepare to enter an interview? How do you do the research on, what you're applying for? And how can you connect the dots saying, okay, this is not something I wanted to do, but what kind of skills can I learn from a job like this if I get it? And how will that open, doors for me? We have a success story where we had someone who studied, who has a bachelor's in PR.
Right.
She had great communication skills, right? great communication skills, bilingual, very presentable. And she loved PR. But she said, I've been looking for a job for 3 years. I haven't found a PR job.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to take a job in retail because I get to deal with people and I get to communicate, and that's something I love.
Sure.
And, she entered retail as a sales associate, basically the lowest level, and she grew very quickly. She became senior sales associate and then store manager, and she's still in retail today.
Sure.
Right?
Brilliant.
If you ask her, are you still considering PR? She'll probably say no.
Right.
Right? Because she's actually got a taste of, it's a very close field. You're communicating with people, you're dealing with your employees, you're dealing with customers. So there's just a lot of success stories that you can build on.
And people don't really, I get some employers saying to me, when coming to interviews, I'm here for attitude and not necessarily skills. And I often kind of be, politely try and say, well, look, they're very young. I don't think they've even formed their own attitude yet. They don't really know what they want.
Yeah.
So we have to try and, say, for example, once they start training, we find once they know they come to work to study every day on time. So, wow, that's a good attitude. But we didn't know that before.
Yes.
So what are you going to judge them on? Now, okay, if someone had worked in 2 or 3 places and you were looking at their CV or whatever, then of course there's probably something coming up. When you're talking to a fresh one, it's much more difficult. There's not so much to measure it by. There might be something in there. So through training is really the opportunity for them to prove what they can do.
Yes.
And as obviously on the minimum side, turning up on time and attending and grooming and some of the basics, showing that I am willing or they are willing to do these sorts of things. So then you can genuinely say to employer, no, I think we have someone with a good attitude.
Yeah.
And those are kind of measurables. But once they get that first job, the learning curve just goes shooting up.
Definitely.
Being on a shift, sharing, thinking, understanding, learning, particularly in our industries with people and all the rest of it. And when they finished even 6 months or maybe a year, it's incredible the difference that can make in somebody.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Those opportunities need to be made available, and employers have to be courageous.
They need to
allow them
believe in the person.
They do. They do. You have to believe in the process, and I think if you get people who are just, as we've talked about, sort of just doing the numbers, it's not going to work. You genuinely have to believe in it because we have a big number of youth, and we need to get them into jobs.
Yeah.
And we need to, as we say, change lives.
Yes. Yes.
So listen, Maimunah, I think we're just about time. So thank you very much, Maimunah, for being with us today.
You're welcome.
It's been really enjoyable, and we've talked about some really interesting topics, but topics which are really fundamental to our kind of daily working lives. So, very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Take care.